It is the Final Word Daily, the England-India Daily, brought to you by New Brew Think Drink. More about them later on. It's me. It's Adam Collins. It's him. It's Daniel Norcross. The reason why we didn't do this earlier is he's been on the train to Manchester, where the fourth Test match is beginning on Wednesday. It's 2-1 in the series, England leading. It's hard to believe it's 8 days ago since that extraordinary finish at Lord's. Daniel, how you feeling? How you seeing it? Let's get into things.
Well, I'm excited. I'm going to say that. I think the last time I was at an Old Trafford Test match was 2 years ago for the Ashes, and there was a lot of anticipation there as well. But I think the difference here is that in this Test series, the better side is 2-1 down, whereas in that series, the worst side was 2-1 up, which is exactly the same, isn't it? It's just, I guess, from an England perspective, I think there is the expectation, if you're a realistic man, that this can't persist and India are going to win one of the last two Test matches at least. And if it is this one, then we could go to Oval and it'd be a humdinger of a decider. And I just get that feeling. I get that feeling that India are just going to get things together. I think they've been a little bit unlucky. I think they've dominated a lot of the series. And also, there's one thing, Colo, about Old Trafford, which is that I don't have the faintest idea how this pitch is going to play. And I kind of did know what to expect at Lord's, at Headingley, and at Edgbaston, and you and I both know what to expect at the Oval. So there's a little bit of a voyage of discovery for this one. So hence the anticipation's ramped up a bit.
Yep, love it. Love it. Lots of threads to pull out here. Why don't we start with the Indian decision to play Jasprit Bumrah, which is really one born of the series scoreline, isn't it? I mean, there are other changes the Indian team have been forced to make with Nitish Kumar already missing through injury. And more importantly, Akashdeep, who I think at times has really looked world-class in this series, especially player of the match in the second test. And they've got a variety of options they could call upon there, but it reinforced the need for Bumrah to be there. He bowled yesterday, not off his full run, but he did bowl at training, and he's had the long break as well, helped by 9 days off. And he'll be, and of course, they didn't bowl on the final day either, did they, India? So he's effectively had 10 days away from the bowling boots, the most part thereof, and he remains the best bowler on the planet. So they just have to play him.
They absolutely have to play him. I mean, they can't go into a must-win game. Really, it is must-win if they want to win the series. They can't go into it with Prasid Krishna, Mohammad Siraj, and Shardul Thakur, or even Kambodge who they brought in. So they can't do that. They're forced into it. It does kind of make you wonder if they do win, whether they might be forced into him playing 4 tests after all, not 3. So that's the other part, which I think will be a bit juicy, is just seeing how Bazball with brains plays Bumrah, because we keep hearing so much about that. So being conscious of the fact that either Bumrah will play both, which they didn't want him to do, and they are back-to-back Test matches, or they try to get so many overs into his legs that he actually physically can't play at the Oval. So there's like games within a game there as well. I think it's a big blow, the loss of Reddy, weirdly. He didn't look a particularly threatening bowler in the second test, but in the third test, he got some vital breakthroughs, and he does wonderful things in that batting lineup. I do think that they've got some decisions they've got to make about how they piece together that lower order. Old Trafford, everyone talks about Old Trafford like it spins, but it's the same myth as Sydney, really.
Yeah.
It has spun. There's a very famous Test match in which Steve Harmison took a bunch of wickets and Monty Panesar took a bunch of wickets, and off the back of that game, this kind of legend grew that Old Trafford was a faster pitch. It was bouncy. It was great for the bang it in quick bowler, but it also turned for the spinner. It was kind of all things to all men. And South Africa made that terrible error in the first year of Bazball when they dropped Marco Jansen. They picked Simon Harmer, and it didn't turn. It didn't do anything. So will they persist with Washington Sundar, or will they be kind of drawn in finally to unveiling Kuldeep Yadav? That's one of the interesting things to look out for, because they've got to take wickets. They've got to take the 20 wickets. And yeah, I would want those wicket-taking options, because their batting at the top of the order looks really solid. You've got so many players in form. Jaiswal, Shubman Gill, KL Rahul. There's plenty of runs. Rishabh Pant, who looks likely to play. There's plenty of batting there, and so I would be inclined to risk it a little, bring in wicket-taking bowlers. Forget the first Test match when they lost 7 wickets for 9 between them collectively. Forget that. Put that away. That trauma's gone. And give me Kuldeep.
I feel that way too. However, I think Washington's such a competitor. And he did have the hot hand at Lords, bowled beautifully in the second dig. I know he missed out with the bat in the second dig, but you look at his career in totality, he's the kind of guy who in big situations has been able to step up. And this series has a trajectory of turning into a real mouthy scrap. And we might come into that in the second segment in something of a Hall of Fame in the off-field stuff with the captains, Shubman Gill at the presser today and Harry Brook in his commentary yesterday. But yeah, the taking of 20 wickets, it's a very reasonable point in this series and the myths around Old Trafford. Anshul Kambodge is an interesting one, isn't he? On the basis that he sprung into the public consciousness taking a 10-wicket bag for Haryana last year in the Ranji Trophy. And by 10-wicket bag, I don't mean in the match, I mean in the innings. The 6th Indian to take all 10 in an innings. He's been exposed to IPL, enjoyed some success in the in all the domestic tournaments in India, actually. So the fact that he's been called up and brought in and he's a wicket-taking option there. Prasidh Krishna, went for loads of runs earlier in the series, but that extra bounce, remember being at Old Trafford a couple of years ago, Daniel, doing that test match with you, and bounce was certainly a factor, which helps that Crawley. We'll come to England and Crawley in a moment, but true bounce at Manchester we can anticipate. And then, of course, the competitor that is Siraj. So, yeah, they're interesting decisions, and India keeping their cards close to their chest. They could indeed bring back Sai Sudarshan if they want to bolster the batting and replace Reddy with him and go a bit deeper. So I feel like they'd be more inclined to play Kuldeep. But that would be against the wisdom of what we're talking about here. You don't want to overthink it and end up with 3 spinners, and that would be surplus to requirements. So there's a lot to consider for India it'll be a night where it might rain as well. I don't know if you looked out your window since you've arrived, Daniel, and whether it's still tipping down, but it was tipping down earlier today. That could easily be the type of thing that makes them wait till the very last moment.
Well, the forecast is getting better. There's, I think, bits and bobs of rain knocking about, but we haven't got. It's nothing like 2023 when we had that forecast some time in advance. As did the players, as did Ben Stokes, and he didn't declare when he might have done.
But it was so important that Best they got that 100 day, he didn't, yes, he didn't get the 100. It was so important. It was just so, all that.
Yeah.
That.
It was going to tip down for a day and a half, and it did. And I guess for Indian listeners, if you're wondering what the difference is, basically in England, you get showers, and they're impossible to predict. They can just pop up here, there, and anywhere. And you might get lucky and they might miss you altogether. And you get weather fronts. And think of the weather front as more like a monsoon. It comes in, and there is no question about it. You see the radar, and there's a gigantic 300-mile wide splodge of rain, and it'll move slowly over the ground and it'll tip down. That's not on the cards. We don't have that. We have low pressure systems that will bring some showery rain. So it could be very frustrating or it could be very lucky. But that is also mostly for the beginning of the test. It's supposed to clear up a little bit thereafter. So we would expect to get at least 4 days worth of cricket in, albeit not at a particularly rapid rate, because neither side likes to bowl their overs quickly. It's not just England. India as well have been culpable in this regard. So, but look, in times gone by, 70 years ago, if this was for the Ashes and Len Hutton was captain, then he'd be looking at this and going, draw. We're going to play for a draw, lads, and we're going to dig in deep. England won't do that unless they have to at the very back end of the game. So both sides are going to be going hell for leather at each other, and it could be spicy. And I think Stokes might well revert to the bowl first policy. I think Lords was a very specific thing, which was because it was mind-bogglingly hot. It was 32 degrees and humid, and he really didn't want to have to go through what he went through in the previous game at Edgbaston. So I think we might be in a win, toss and bowl situation as well, and it could be a little bit murky and a little bit gloomy first day, and it could be a bit spicy.
Let's go to England. They've named their 11. So they'll retain the same fast bowlers. So any temptation to rest Jofra Archer after his first test back in 4 years has been shelved. Bryden Cast gets another go. Fair enough, too, given the way he influenced the final innings of the match. Chris Wokes, I was a little bit interested in that. I thought that they might give him a spell, but he keeps his spot. The one change is Liam Dawson replacing Shah Bashir, who broke his finger in the previous Test match before he took the wicket that won it for England. But Liam Dawson, look, remember, this is the guy who prioritised county cricket earlier in the year. He didn't go to the PSL. When white ball only contracts are becoming increasingly a part of the conversation in England, and given the trajectory of Dawson's career, he could be excused for having thought about taking one of them himself. But instead, he's rattled off a couple of excellent, not just good or great, but truly outstanding championship seasons in a row. He's given himself the chance after they've rotated. I was reading a Matt Roller article. 11 spinners have gone through that England team since Dawson last played in 2017. So it's a great story, age 35, and it'll end up being a de facto audition for Australia as well, whether they say it or not. If he bowls well here, and he is more than just a pretty face as well, right? He's not just I think he gets unfairly depicted as a guy who just bowls the same ball over and over again. Dependability and predictability with your stock delivery is a good thing when you're a finger spinner. I think Shah Bashir would kill for a little bit more dependability and predictability with his stock ball. But also, Dawson wouldn't have played as much T20 cricket in England or around the world if he didn't have variety as well. So, he's a man who they are backing here. And that is interesting. They're sticking with their formula other than that, with 3 quicks, the spinner plus Ben Stokes. Ben Stokes, just touching on over eights, made the point. I'm actually buoyed by the fact that Stokes went beyond the usual, oh, well, who cares about over eights? You're all a bunch of soft cocks. He actually went, well, I get the issue. He was more thoughtful in the way he came at his answer on this when it was put to him that, yes, I understand the frustration. I get we're not trying to slow the game down, but also he feels as though how taxed the fast bowlers are when you're playing in this part of the world, the over rates are automatically going to be different to where there are lots of spinners. That's actually a very good point. And he's asking for there to be over rates that are different from maybe continent to continent. It's not crazy talk. I'm glad that he's engaging with it in more than that kind of rudimentary, are you entertained kind of vibe that it was back in the early days of baseball, when that really hurt them when they lost 22 World Test Championship points. They lost 2 more at Lords. But anyway, I digress. I simply state that they'll probably be up against similar overrate pressure this week, and they will have the same configuration of bowlers with the exception of Dawson as they had at Lords last week.
Yeah, I think Lords was, again, slightly different because it was so hot. There was that as well. And a lot of people may be saying, well, it's only 32, 33 degrees. I promise you, London 32, 33 is a different kind of 32, 33 because it's 85% humidity as well. So it's punishing and it's unpleasant. And that will play into it. And you're right, there's not a lot of respite. And also, I mean, Shubman Gill had a 7-minute massage, for heaven's sake, and you're just never quite sure. There's an awful lot of bringing out of gloves and putting them back on again. Both sides are slowing the game down, both when they're batting and they're bowling. It is what it is. And I get kind of bored of the conversation. I quite like the idea of different over rates in different parts of the world, but what I would then look to do is make the day longer, because I don't want to shortchange the customer, and I would just add an extra half hour onto the day to get through the overs. Yeah, it's going to be the same configuration of bowlers, you're right, with the exception of Dawson. Dawson, look, if this is it feels a bit computer gamey. It feels like we're going to see Dawson bowl, and he's going to be a 35-year-old spinner, and he's therefore not going to miss his lengths and might be a bit predictable, but is going to give his captain a lot of certainty as to where he can set a field. Liam Dawson's still a human being, and he didn't ever think he was going to play Test cricket again. He got a little bit snarky about being offered, the drinks carrier role in winters gone by, and said, you know what, I'm like beyond that now. I don't really want to do that. And it looked like he'd sort of gone, that's it. I don't want to play Test cricket again. Now he's got this chance, and it could result in an Ashes winter.
Huge.
He's going to be nervous. He's going to be really, really nervous. And so there's a lot of pressure on him. I don't think he's just a plug and play. I've seen a couple of articles which would describe Liam Dawson as plug and play. No one's plug and play. And the series is 2-1, and he's playing against a very strong batting lineup that has shown no concerns against spin at all. But he's a pragmatic choice. I thought it gave England the opportunity to rest Woakes because he could slot it at 8. What they've actually ended up with is Woakes Dawson at 8 and 9, which is great for Jamie Smith. Allows him to bat longer with 2 good batters, and with Bryden Cast at 10. I mean, his 50 at Lords was not a fluky, streaky, tail-enders biffing 50. There were some very fine shots in there. So it's a decent tale And therefore it feels quite pragmatic, doesn't it? It feels like England have got a couple more bases covered than they normally would have. A lot's going to depend on how Stokes and Archer and Wokes all turn up, because there are concerns about all three of them. Stokes bowled so many overs at Lords. Archer, it turns out, was fit, was match fit. Yeah, he'd only bowled 18 overs of red ball cricket, but it turns out that if you bowl quite a lot in 50 over cricket and 20 over cricket, and you're training really hard, that perhaps you don't actually need to play lots of red ball cricket. And indeed, if you look at the Indian fast bowlers, they've not played very much red ball cricket for 6 months either, because they hadn't been playing Ranji Trophy, a lot of them. I think, was it Siraj or Prasid Krishna, I think, when they played the first test, hadn't played a red ball game for 6 months. So, look, modern day cricketers adapt very, very differently, and it turns out Jofra Archer's fit. But until fans see him do it a second time and then a third time, they're always going to be nervous, you know.
Isn't it funny that modern cricketers and all those who work with them have a better idea of how their bodies work than those who played 40 or 50 years ago, who always barrel them for the way in which they prepare or don't prepare or whatever it is. Hey, Daniel, we're going to take a breather. We're going to come back to something of a Hall of Fame, because we can't let the pitch go by with Harry Brook yesterday. Nor can we let the pitch go by with Shubman Gill today. On the way through to that, this show, of course, is brought to you by New Brew. In my hand here for the third time today. It's a supplement. It's the Think Drink. It's the supplement to support brain health and performance. It's a supplement, rather. It contains nootropics. Listeners to the show in the last 3 test matches know what nootropics are already, but I'll remind you, its primary purpose to increase sharpness, concentration, and memory, formulated in collaboration with scientists and nutritionists. You know, who wants to take pills every day? Like, personally, because of the issues I've had recently, I've got to take lots of drugs at the moment. It's bloody annoying. If I had to do that every day to get what I'm getting out of this, I wouldn't do it. Banging a little bit of the powder into the water and shaking it up and going for it tastes beautiful too. Different story entirely. Different formulations for different needs. And they've got 150,000 people worldwide who are taking this stuff. So, you know, there is the endorsement of the market. I'm at the moment, I've got Advantage in my hand. I've got the peach flavored Advantage. I drank the Advantage before I tell you about the green one. Daniel, you know that where I was playing cricket on Sunday, for it is your former club. At the Edward Lane ground, I was playing for ODB. And before going out to bat, we were in a spot of bother at 100 for 7 when I walked out before tea. And, declaration game, we had to put a shift in. Otherwise, we're at risk of being resold. And, correlation or causation. The last thing I did before walking out to bat was completing my bottle of New Brew, and walked off an hour or so later, having put us in a much better position, putting on 100 with my teammate. Did I do that because of New Brew? I can't say that categorically. But did that happen in that order? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. So you can join the dots, my friends.
That was back out on the field,
It should. And, I'm going to take any advantage. I'm a man who is neurodivergent. I'm a man with ADHD. I'll take anything going to help streamline my thinking or to give me any mental clarity that I require in this busy brain of mine. And this is doing that. That's why I'm drinking it all the time. It tastes great. So the green one's the cheat, by the way. This is quite good. I'm trying to lose a few kegs when I'm in the process of recuperation at the moment because, not allowed to have a beer. That might be why I'm having more New Brew than would otherwise be the case. But New Brew cheats, your secret weapon when you want to have carbs without the guilt, helps your body handle sugar better, slows down how many carbs you get absorbed, and it means that you don't end up necessarily with those energy crashes or cravings afterwards. So it lets you have your cake and eat it too without the usual stress on your system. That's the green New Brew. Now, newbrew.com/final word, NOOBRU. That gets you 15% off, automatically applied at checkout. Just want to say one more thing. Watch tomorrow's show. Something coming. In fact, you'll be hosting it. So you'll be telling people about it. We've got an outstanding little offer in conjunction with our great mates at New Brew. It's starting tomorrow. Newbrew.com/final word will be what unlocks all of this. But you'll learn more tomorrow. That's just my teaser. I'm trailing this nicely.
You are. I'm very excited. I can't wait. And I don't know anything about it yet.
No, you're going to like it. In fact, you're going to enter. You're going to be part of this, I suspect, because you're a bit like me with these things. Okay, breather, stop, prop, Hall of Fame in a sec. Here's the final word. It's the preview show for the 4th test match at Manchester between England and India. Daniel, Harry Brook, yesterday. saying that no more nice guys. They don't want to be liked after 3 years of having rather an alternative approach. And he said that it's fun. He said, 11 versus 2 on the field. It's fun. Yeah. Being pricks on the field, it's heaps of fun. Nothing more enjoyable than being an arsehole on the field. Yes, completely agree with that. I actually don't mind them front footing this either. It is enormously, because the weird bit, of course, though, is that we see news reports of this All Blacks mental clarity coach who's been working with the England team, who's implementing the time-honoured no dickheads policy, which goes back to Aussie rules 20 years ago, and won't surprise you to learn, Daniel. No dickheads policy, which lots of teams use around the world. Does this mean that England might revert to an all dickheads policy? That's what I'm after. I'm after an international coach to come out there and or a professional coach saying, we're going the other way. No more no dickheads. We're going all dickheads. We want the worst bunch of blokes imaginable in this dressing room, and see whether that provides a comparative advantage. We've gone one way. Bazball's been all touchy-feely rainbow rhythms. Maybe Harry Brook is giving us a sense of what might be to come. And I'm all for it. I've got to tell you, I'm all for this.
I find this so cognitively dissonant, because aside from the fact that an England team under Bazball that had Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson in it, who are very fine, very noble bowlers, but I don't think you would suggest that they weren't dickheads on the field of play. And I would say there's some Indians who remember very well a certain dickheadian behaviour from Anderson in 2014, was it, in that tour with Jadeja? Stuart Broad moving Bales around and being a pantomime villain. Ben Duckett, I've really enjoyed his pronouncements on various things, but I don't think the rest of the world thinks he's not a dickhead. Joe Root is the only one there, I think, who just won't be able to be a dickhead if you want a full all dickheads policy. Sure. But
imagine he gets dropped. Sorry, Joe, you're out of the 11. You're not enough of a prick. Sorry. Take your story walking, champ.
I kind of feel that Jofra Archer might struggle with that as well. Shoaib Bashir's young, so he could be moulded into a dickhead. I think there's a lot of potential for dickheadery amongst the entire side, actually, if they wanted to lean into their inner dickhead. What I would suggest is, and I'm always going to do this because I believe in balance. I used to run a cricket team as well, and I had a one dickhead policy. We had to have one dickhead. He was our dickhead. And we unleashed the dickhead, and he would go off and do dickhead things, and the rest of us would hide behind him, going, "Yeah, I'm sorry, he's a dickhead."
But you remember them too, don't you? Really I had a bloke come up to me at the Sydney Test this year over the boundary line when doing the post-play interviews. His nickname was Kinner, and Kinner was the most violent cricketer I ever played with. I felt for everyone's safety at times when playing with him about 20 years ago down in Mentone. And so Dave came up, and I remembered him for the way he was on the field, as intense as anyone I've seen. But that's okay. England leaning into this is good. No more party. No more, no more of this sort of. I'm pleased with the move because I understand why McCullum brought it over from New Zealand, but not sure it necessarily suited them, which might have been why occasionally it jarred. Well, not occasionally, quite a lot of the time the preachy stuff did jar. That's probably the bit of Bazball that pissed off Australians the most. It's like, don't fucking force it down our throats. And now we've got a more level playing field. Everyone being pricks together, everyone being dickheads together. Shubman Gill this afternoon at this press conference saying that England breached the spirit of cricket with their time wasting at Lords. Bring it on. I think, he said that the 7-minute delay, he said, he said words to the effect of, I wish to clear the air and speak once and for all on this. And he gave a long answer to the effect of, they took 90 extra seconds to get out on the ground. Then they took 7 minutes to bowl and over. It was, as it's been written up in the paper, as you'd expect very quickly, saying that, it contravenes the spirit of cricket. And the spirit of cricket's all things to all people, right? You get a nebulous idea. There is a preamble at the front of the laws, which basically says treat the umpires nicely. But from that point forward, it's an interpretation matter. And did England take the piss that night? Most certainly they did. Was it funny? Sure. Is it contradictory that you and I bang on about overrates and we found that funny? Totally. But if we can't contradict ourselves on the final word, when can we?
I come from a country whose greatest achievement and export is hypocrisy. So I'm guilty as charged on all of those. And so, I don't find it difficult at all to opine in this fashion. But what this has done, though, is it's made sure that the wound stays open, and that's exactly what we want, isn't it?
Perfect. Hey, Daniel, time for us to finish up. I'm going to say my beautiful daughter, Winnie, finished her first year of school today. Remarkable that like at age 5.5, she's already finished reception, but that's the way it works over here. So I've got to go downstairs and go and, get her ready for bed. So that'll be you and me done for today. You get the great privilege of being at Old Trafford throughout the week, calling it for Test Match Special. Try that again. Test Match Special. Should know how it's said. Enjoy that. It's going to be. You'll have millions of listeners this week, and that's just on the final word. You'll have so many people listening to what you're saying over in, over out. So that'll be quite the experience. Daniel, have fun.
Thank you very much. As I say, right at the top, this is one of those games that you just really, really anticipate. So let's hope the rain stays away and we get an absolute cracker. And, maybe 2-2 go to the Oval.
2-2 go to the Oval. Yeah. I mean, I think I think anyone that isn't hugely invested in the England result, 2-2. Let's go to the Oval. India wins, we all win. Right. That's us done. Here for New Brew. Newbrew.com/final word. I've not done many of these, you see. I've not been on many of the daily shows. You'll be back with Ben tomorrow. You've done lots of them. And you'll have Ben for company up there at Old Trafford. This has been the Final Word Daily. We'll chat to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.